Welcome to another edition of The Great Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Today, I would like to issue an apology and then explain a little further about Goddess. My apologies to anyone who thought that I was demeaning their religion by saying that they could not worship multiple gods and goddesses. To those of you who worship multiple gods and goddesses, I am sorry. I didn't mean to tell you what to do or tell you that you couldn't practice your religion as you see fit. Now, that said, I still hold my beliefs in one goddess. I still believe in one goddess. What I wanted most of all was to put my plea out there so that others who believe the same as I do could worship her with me, so we could worship her together. And that is the reason why I put the one goddess plea out there. I was pleading to those who believe as I do in one goddess so that we could worship together, not to demean anyone who believes otherwise, who believes in multiple gods and goddesses. You're entitled to your beliefs. I don't agree with your beliefs, but you're entitled to your beliefs. So my apologies to anyone who took it that way, and I really sincerely believe that there's others out there that believe as I do in one goddess, and we can worship her together. If you're out there, I want you to know you're not alone. Let's worship her together. That was the purpose of the talk I gave the other day on one goddess. I was laying out my beliefs so that anyone who shares them can join me. Come join me in worshiping Goddess together, not to demean anyone else's beliefs. That said, Goddess is crying. Goddess is crying because her children have forgotten her. All of her children have forgotten her. Look at the world we live in. Is Goddess worshipped anywhere? Does anyone anywhere believe in Goddess? No. She has been almost completely forgotten by her children. Goddess is crying because her children no longer worship her. And then, when she finally was remembered, when people finally remembered Goddess, they worshipped her as many different gods and goddesses. And that was the one thing that she didn't want to have happen. The one thing that the goddess meant Judaism and Christianity to combat, that of worshiping multiple gods and goddesses, was the first thing to come back with goddess worship. And so the goddess was not being worshipped in the way that she intended to be worshipped, as one goddess. Instead, multiple gods and goddesses came back, and she was being worshipped as one of many goddesses. And this was the one thing that she didn't want. So the goddess is crying because not only have her children forgotten her, but the children that remember her are worshiping multiple gods and goddesses, and they don't even respect her. They don't even pray to her. All they do is invoke her name in a magical ritual. So the goddess cries, and she cries not for herself, but for all of us, her lost children. Now, by mentioning Judeo-Christianity, I want to make it clear, I'm not telling anyone to worship according to the Bible. I'm not telling anyone that they have to follow the Bible in order to worship the goddess. In fact, just the opposite. You shouldn't follow the Bible. But I wanted to make it clear that Judeo-Christians are very respectful of their God, and we should show the goddess at least as much respect, if not more respect, than the Judeo-Christians show to their God. I never meant to say that you should follow the Bible. That was not my intention. Very briefly, I would like to touch on the subject of titles versus names. As I said before, goddess should be known by only one name, and that is goddess in whatever religion is spoken. And that is to prevent anyone from worshiping all of these false gods and goddesses. Instead, they will concentrate on the worship of the one true goddess and be blessed with abundance of joy and very, very respectful of her. Because with one name, everybody knows who you're talking about. Everybody knows that you're talking about goddess if you call her by one name, and everybody can worship her together. Now that said, the goddess still has many titles, and titles are different from names because titles apply to goddess's person rather than being a name, such as a name of a false goddess. We're talking about titles such as the Great Goddess, or Mother Goddess, or the Great Mother. Those are examples of titles belonging to goddess. And the goddess has many titles, but none of those titles are meant to refer to more than one deity. They are all one person. That's goddess. They're not meant to represent multiple goddesses. The titles are just ways of focusing on her and calling her by many names, but they're really titles. They're not names. She only has one name, and that is goddess. Tune in next time for another edition of The Great Goddess.